Hi, I'm Ekaterina, co-founder of Future London Academy, and today we've got a very special episode for you. We will be visiting the iconic, the legendary Pentagram studio in London, where we'll meet one of their esteemed partners, Marina Willer. Come with me.
I love the Pentagram building because it has so much history and the integrity of, the architecture, which was done by one of our founders. Here, we love our books. I think we are very digital, but we also love being surrounded by books. This is collected over like 50 years, but here we've got an archive of all of the jewels of Pentagram and the artwork, and you've got the originals here, so it's very precious and lots of beautiful prints, books and book covers, so they're all there as well. We have a wonderful chef. We're lucky, we have lunch here every day. I like some of the meeting rooms more than others, like that one, because all of the colors, you probably noticed there are a lot of colors, so that has been around since previous iterations of Pentagram. So those boards with typography have been around for long. A lot of the prints are presents that we give to everyone who works at Pentagram every Christmas. Here is my very favorite part of Pentagram, which is our workshop. I think it means a lot because we're not just doing things on screen, we really test and pilot.
Do you feel like the younger designers still have the habit of doing things with hands?
No, they don't, but I think we work hard, at least my team and partners as well, to always originate work in a different way, so it's not just repeating a formula, not using always the same programs. So in that way, you might have to build something here with the tools, or physically create things and then photograph. We also turn the meeting rooms into photo shoot spaces. I love this anyway because it's the summary of our history, and I think as much as we say often, no, it's not about the logo. Logos don't matter so much. You can see when you have a great logo, say Biba or V&A, it's just so meaningful and so much part of our history and culture.
Let's start with the big one, because you somehow managed to do it all, and I seriously don't know how, and I don't know how one human can even start and finish and do and think in so many different ways, because obviously you have an incredible successful career as a designer. You worked in two of the most incredible companies, Wolf Olins and Pentagram, and you've been a partner at Pentagram for now 12 years, and obviously worked on some of the most famous brand identities. But that wasn't enough for you. You somehow found time and energy to do art, and you do your own exhibitions, you do lots of artistic projects. And on top of that, you also decided to direct a movie, which became a success and went to Cannes Film Festival. So how do you manage to do it all? Where do you find time and energy to go in so many different directions?
I never see things like in the sense that I've done too much or that anything has been a success. It's more, I just keep doing things that I love, and the more hours you put into things, the more experience you get, and it gets easier to manage many things at the same time. For me, it's always been important to be inspired and curious about many more things than just design. So whether it's architecture, arts, film, reading, going out and looking at things in the streets and markets and all of that, and being really present when you are living in the world, or even on the way to work. When I cycle to work, stop and take a picture, notice things that are going, listen to conversations, listen to different languages that I hear on the way to work. So all of that is about getting inspiration from many different areas. And then creativity comes together and you create different outputs. For the feature film, it was never intended to be a feature film. I had this hunger to do something about the history of my dad's family because they survived the Second World War, the Nazi occupation of Prague as a Jewish family, and that was so against the odds. And then they also ended up in Brazil. So that journey, and they were one of the only 12 families that survived in Prague. And it was a combination of luck, and also my granddad was a scientist working. He was leading the discovery of a formula for citric acid, which is not a super important thing, but it was useful as a preservative during the war to preserve food. So he was seen probably as useful, and so they remained alive, even though all of the family around and the friends, they all went to concentration camp. And as soon as the war finished, they escaped, which was still quite difficult to do with the transitions that were happening. And they managed to start a life again in Brazil. And in Brazil, my family has always been so mixed because my mom's background is also French and a little bit German. And the combination of all of that is a fruit salad, as we say. So it was a story that was burning for me to tell. I started with a Kickstarter to get the money to make a short film, and then a producer in New York saw the Kickstarter and the video I made for that and said, I think your story deserves a feature film. And then they ended up selling it later to Netflix. So they got a much bigger, it wasn't planned to be a big deal. It got more, I was very lucky, I think. And I always think that when we're creating things, we need to try and be more innovative with the outcome and not just think, oh, I'm going to do the same that I did before. So always trying to find new ways of telling stories, finding ways that are relevant to those stories. And then I've always been interested in filmmaking, so I always made short films. It's not like a random accident. But I didn't have the ambition to make a feature film. That wouldn't have occurred to me. It just kind of grew, and I was lucky that happened.
This is incredible, and I love how you talk about curiosity, because that's something Michael Wolff always talks about, how curiosity is a muscle. We need to train it every day, and especially as a creative, the art of noticing is something that's very easy to give up on as you grow up. And what you describe about noticing things on the way to work, and the sounds, the accents, or the interesting objects or the textures, seems like that is definitely your habit of everyday life, which probably what creates all of these incredible ideas and helps create ideas in the head, and that evolve into huge projects. But I also feel like there is this problem for a lot of creatives when there are too many ideas. As a creative, you are drawn to so many things and you see things that you want to do. And I'm sure lots of creatives watching us will think, yeah, I want to do a feature film. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do that. So how do you choose between all the things that you could do as a side project, as something that draws your passion and curiosity, and to the ones that you actually will do? And what are the first steps when because any unknown thing that you haven't done before is probably a little bit scary and uncomfortable to start with. So how do you pick the new things to approach? And also, what are the first things you do when you decide, okay, maybe I should do a new short film or documentary or something?
I think that when we are really young, we have sort of that fear of the stage, of doing anything. So you overthink. I think one of the things that happened to me at lockdown is I got to think a lot more about what to do with the free time. So there's work, okay, we're working, and then everything feels a bit claustrophobic. So we need to be more creative about how we use the time outside of work, because we can't really go out much. So I started to go back to things that I hadn't done since college and do a lot more sketching and doodling and painting and painting lots of different things as well, and making presents for friends. And that, I think the abundance of making ideas is never a problem. I think, you know, for a mind to be, and I agree with Michael Wolff, who's someone very dear to me, and I probably learned a lot from him. I think keeping your muscles going and working and never stopping. You can spend the night sketching if you get in the zone, or painting and or thinking about ideas. I think you have to then learn to edit what's important to you and make decisions. Where do I want to work? Where do I want to spend my time? What projects, if you're independent, then what projects do I want to really follow through, and what things do I believe in? And sometimes you just have to try things. Of course, when it comes to client work, I think the way I work with my team is, you know, it is very strategic, but it's also very much about experimenting and using different methods of creation. And we explore methods that are relevant to this specific brief and problem we're trying to solve. So unusual methods, not just sitting at the computer, doing it in other ways, including the computer. Once you have this abundance of ideas and methods, explorations, and all of that, then I think it's important to learn to edit. But editing is something that I think comes with time and experience. And I know how much harder it was for me in the beginning when I was a junior designer to even decide what palette of colors should I use, or what, you know, things were much heavier in that, you know, like, oh my God, I think it's a bit like any sport or learning to dance, and some of those things become much more instinctive with experience. You know, this is right for that brief or for the thing that I'm trying to achieve. And editing is, you know, some of it is experience. And when I work with a lot of people in the team, my role has to be to help to plant the seed and the origination of ideas, but also to learn to help them edit what we're going to focus on, and have some criteria for editing, not just random, I like red or I like this. It's really about what the job needs to do.
How can one learn this skill of editing? Because you're so right, it comes with experience, and then it almost becomes an intuition, what will work, what doesn't, what you should do. But on this journey to the point where it becomes very natural, how can one think about this editing and decision making?
I think for every type of work, there's different filters, I guess. But if we're doing design and identities, I'm thinking, what is the story we're trying to tell? What is it responding to? Who is the audience? And how can we do something that reflects the unique nature of the client or the organization that we're working for? So it has to express that and nothing else. So you see the V&A logo behind here, and you think that is so much about art and crafts, and the way it does that, it's so relevant. It wouldn't work for a different organization. And I think that's the relevance that we need to, and it's experience, because we now work in a way here at Pentagram. I work in a way where creativity and strategy, or creation and strategy, design and strategy, are completely intertwined. You don't separate. It's not a different specialist doing this and then another one doing that. We do it all together. We might have people supporting more in different areas, like business, etc. But by being part of that process, when we start to design things, we already instinctively know what's right, because it's expressing a set of needs and a set of values and a set of, you know, strategic plans that the organization has. So we're doing the branding for an opera, like I was telling you, Glyndebourne, which is a wonderful opera outside London. So they have very unique conditions and the setting, and they are like nothing else. So we need to express that specific point of difference through everything, all of the elements that we have to tell that story, from verbal to visual, from typography, colors, logo, imagery, all of that has to express in combination. The other mistake sometimes, I think, when you're very new to the job is you want to do everything with one logo, for example, when you can't do everything. You have to pick what is the center of gravity, let's say, that, you know, of the story that you need to tell, and that, you know, is expressed there, and perhaps other, you know, there are other things that complement, that give the look and feel, the personality. And it all works as a language of many pieces, not in isolation.
Have you ever been in a situation where this uniqueness, you can't find it, or you disagree what this uniqueness is? And how do you, if you ever had this situation, how did you go about aligning everyone, or actually finding or nailing it down? What is this unique thing that we are trying to do?
Yeah, I think with some organizations it's very clear because there is a passion, there is a conviction, and they know what they stand for very clearly. With others, it can be more abstract, and you might have a disparate group of clients. So it's a real it's really an important part of our job to put all these things together and to orchestrate the conversations. And you can't push things in, because it's a bit like if you go to the hairdresser and the hairdresser does a style that you hate, you're going to go somewhere else and fix it. It's not going to stay. So for things to stick, they need to feel that they are true to the organization. That it's not a marketing gimmick. It has to feel like it has a life that comes from the client and those who own. So, for example, did the logo for Tate, and I worked with the team that created the brand at the time, Follins, and it's over 23 years old now or something. And the reason why it stays is because it is reflecting a story that is genuine. It is a shame sometimes companies and organizations change their identity just because there's a new director or something, and they, you know, you see the loss of incredible identities sometimes. But we're lucky when they, you know, if they're right and they survive. Like, I think it would be crazy, I mentioned the V&A, for someone to change that. You don't want to be the person known for losing something that is so dear and special and has a cultural sort of recognition.
Yeah, definitely. I think V&A is iconic, and I'm glad you mentioned the value of brand and the continuity, and like the how it's definitely not a marketing tool. It's something that should stay for a long time. And I feel like in the fast-paced world that we live right now, I think sometimes branding becomes this in-between measure of communication, mixed with kind of other communication tools, whether it needs just a new CEO, and kind of with the new CEO comes the new branding, the new identity, or like it changes too fast. While when things are authentic and good, they really can stand through the times. And clearly lots of Pentagram examples are the ones who are iconic and have been part of companies for decades, which is
Yeah, I think I think we're proud to position ourselves like that. We don't want to do work that is just fashionable, but you know, at the same time, it's not always up to us whether a brand will remain, because things change and people change, and sometimes it's a vanity thing that people want to change the logo of an organization just to show that now they are in control or something. So, and designers do that too. So it's not. It depends on many variables.
you already mentioned how unique Pentagram is in terms of the approach to clients' work, but I would love to talk about the insides of Pentagram. And there are many articles and there is a lot of information about how the partnership is a very unique structure for a design studio. Obviously, Pentagram is still independent. It's not owned by any network, and all the partners have a share and of responsibilities and revenue and everything else, but also need to bring clients. So I would love to talk a little bit more about how do you as a partner combine all these different things that you need to do on top of being a creative and doing the creative work. So first of all, how do you need to bring your own clients as a partner, and how do you balance between this external and internal work?
Pentagram is very unique in its models, and it has challenges and it has wonderful things. That's why it lasted over 50 years, and we are very proud not to be sold to a group or a company, because we feel that when that happens, the talent and the soul of the company, the soul tends to go. It is very challenging, and we talk amongst the partners, we always say it's the hardest gig we've ever played, because we have to find that balance. Each partner runs a small team. We have to win the work. Yes, we have to bring the work, even though a lot of people get in touch with Pentagram all the time, and they typically say, I want to work with Paula Scher, or I want to work with Angus or Marina or whoever. But there are moments when they don't say, and we discuss. But it is a balance, because we don't have the injection of capital that you have guaranteed from a group. So you know that you need to pay the salaries every month, and you know that you need to pay the bills. So there's a lot of pressure to both do the best work you can do, but also to keep the targets and not, slip away from that. So it's always, the work has to be judged with that configuration of, challenges, and at the same time it's what motivates us, and we feel very proud when we look at each other's work and what other partners are doing, and also that we're very hands-on, literally creating brands and products and design stories very close to us. It's not like we're delegating it to other people to do it.
What do you have to do apart from obviously Pentagram is a incredibly famous studio company, so people come to you and they say, we want to work with Marina on this project. Do you need to do anything proactively, whether it is go on lots of interviews and or actually knock on clients' doors and say, do you need an identity this year? Like, is there anything that you have to do in terms of proactively looking for new business as a partner?
We are not the best at proactively doing new business. I think we all just very busy doing the work, and we're lucky that the work does come to us. I think I wouldn't lie that the reputation of Pentagram, which precedes any of us, helps to give a certainty and a feeling of, we are talking to the experts. We have experience, and we've done a lot of we're the most awarded agency according to DNAD and so on. So I think all of that gives a sense of weight and gravitas, which helps all of us individually. So I'm always conscious of that and grateful for that, because I know if I do good work, it helps other partners, and when they do good work, that helps us. And it is very much like that. We're driving things together. But what we need to do is just keep doing great work, because every project that you do that, and people love the project, it attracts more clients. And most of my clients come, oh, you did Rolls Royce, so I want to work with you. So I get the phone call because of that. That is the best piece of new business, is the work that you did before. And Pentagram does not hide who did the work. I think some of the other more corporate companies will talk about the work, even though the person or the people who did it might not have been there for years. We are very clear about who does what. We celebrate the individuality of every team and every partner. We don't sort of create a big corporate umbrella. But we very much also talk, oh, I love this, High Line was done by Paula and is an incredible piece, or Michael Baruch did MIT and is one of my favorite brands. We're lucky to be able to refer to make these references to the work that the collective, the sum of all of us has done.
This is incredible. And I also heard that you're very honest with each other as partners, and you have, is it yearly catch-up retreat as a partner for all partners where you critique each other's work?
Yeah, we do every 6 months, actually, we meet somewhere else, not in one of the offices. That's been the rule forever because they want to make sure that we are not like taking calls and doing work, that we are completely immersed in discussing everything to do with the model, being really transparent about the finances so everyone knows what each of us is doing. We all earn the same as partners. We show work every 6 months, so we have that pressure to be doing good work. And it's funny because they always say it's the hardest thing is to show work to our other partners, which is fascinating because they all do a lot of talks and we all do that. But I think it's a tough crowd. And but it is what makes it lovely, and it always reminds you that you're part of this incredible community, that you always look, I always aspired to become a designer like some of my partners, and now they're my partners. So I find that very special, and I find myself very privileged to have been chosen. I never take for granted, and I think that's a lovely feeling also about when we start talking about where the company is going, and there's a sense of we-ness. It's not just me and a few people around. I think there's something much more like we are. In a way, there is a sense of making history of design, and because we believe design is so important to the world and shaping culture, it plays a role. And the choices you make of clients and the things that you want to work with are really important because you can contribute to things which will change life in a positive way or the other way around. So it's important to make those choices carefully.
This is incredible. I can just only imagine all Pentagram partners coming together and how much probably creativity is in one room. But also there must be heated debates about, I don't know, finances or work or anything else. How does it go from the emotional perspective when you all come together? What does it feel like to be in that meeting?
I think it's all the things that you described, because we have to talk about, the model, we have to talk about what matters to us, we have to talk about the book that we published and carefully edited and took years to get to this Bible of design that came out last year. We have to talk about finances, what future partners should be like. We talk a lot about things like diversity and the things that matter to the practice moving forwards. We talk about how people perceive us and our website and the use of digital platforms. So all of those things, and some things people are very passionate about and have heated arguments sometimes. And I'm sure I'm one of them because I'm Brazilian and a bit loud. And yeah, so.
How do you resolve with so many partners? I think there are so many stories of 2 co-founders or 3 co-founders not getting along, and you have so many great partners, and I'm sure each of them has a lot to offer and lots of ideas of their own. So when those debates happen, how do you resolve them? How do you decide which direction to go from there?
I think when you join Pentagram, you understand that you're joining a community, is a bunch of people, and we make decisions together, and you have to exercise the ability to decide things together and not divide the group. So we're always very sure that we're not dividing, and we avoid voting, for example. We try to make and build consensus. It is very challenging. It's not easy, probably not, I don't know, the smartest way to make decisions. But I think for us, this is not all about making money and being as lean as possible. It is about creating the best work we can and being able to sustain the business and go forward. But I think a lot of us, if it was just about the money, we would have set up on our own, and you can do whatever you want. But there is a real attraction to the idea of sharing with people that you really respect, and you look at each other's work and you go, wow, that is, I wish I had done that. And that keeps us going. I think that's why we're here together, and some people have been partners for over 30 years and they still enjoy coming in. And I'm so impressed by how hard all the partners work. Not just the partners, of course, everyone around them, but I've seen in bigger companies that when people get very senior, they're not as hands-on anymore. They're like, much more likely involved in the outcome. And I hope that what is interesting to clients when they choose Pentagram is they're literally choosing that Michael Beirut or John Marshall or Harry Pierce, they will be doing the work with their team. They will be making the decisions and the choices and processing a strategy to get to there. It's not, we just brief someone and come and see what's going on. It isn't. That's not the model. It's you get that in and there's pros and cons. But for me, it's been wonderful to join Pentagram because it's liberating. I can be very artistic and creative. I found my voice again, but I have to also be really smart about making the business work, my little unit within the bigger business, work and deliver what it needs to do every month. Also make decisions quickly and be able to direct projects quickly. And I think you get much more agile because it's an exercise, back to Michael Wolff. Yeah.
Well, you're so right about how unique the Pentagram is as a company, and it even feels here being in a building, it has a very special feeling and I suppose culture, how you approach life, work, or everything around what you do. And I always wondered actually, because we were just discussing how calm it feels here. Every time I come in, I feel like there is certain feeling, like a Zen feeling here. But there are a lot of stressful projects that everyone is working on. And as you said, everyone is working very hard. So I wonder, how do you balance this kind of still enjoying the work, as you said, and not doing it just for the money, and trying to kind of enjoy the process of it and being surrounded by incredible people versus the stress of big projects and big clients, and I'm sure there is a lot of demand and everything else that you need to do. So have you found the perfect balance?
I think we all have different ways and we all have a lot of stress, I wouldn't lie. But, I think like with everything, you have to find ways to mitigate that. I have a team that I truly love, and they are all very special, and they've been handpicked, even though they maybe came to Pentagram in their own way. But you nurture, and I think that really helps us feel happy when we're working. And I do things outside of work which are very creative. And I cycle a lot, and I also do swim and do things. But I do a lot of these more sort of arty kind of experiments and scribbling and painting, and that for me is very relaxing. But I think enjoying the work is the most important thing. We all the partners chose this model because we don't want to be disconnected from the creative process or from the creation of the outcome. If you want to just become more like managerial or run a company instead, which is an interesting option, but it's not what we want. I think we are running the company as well as, and we do that with, a very, we have to be really practical and on it so that, we can deliver the work in the best quality and in budget and all the rest of it. But we chose this model because it allows us to enjoy the work, and that's the reason to get out of bed. If some people love running a company. I think we happen to run a company here, but we do it collectively, and the collective wisdom has helped us over the year finesse how we do that, or disagree more and more how we do that. But there is something that is collectively developed by a group of people running a ship, and it's different to a more hierarchical, model, or a model where there's many layers between the client and the people creating the job.
Talking about hierarchical organizations and leadership and kind of all the other things that and structures, what you need to have to run a company. I'd love to hear your perspective on creative leadership or design leadership, because again, in Pentagram it is so different. It is very non-hierarchical, but at the same time, you do need to lead your team. You do need to inspire and be the person everyone wants you to be. So when I say leadership to you or design leadership, what does come to your mind? How do you approach it, and what does it mean to you?
My style of leadership is just being very natural, collaborating a lot. I think I don't pretend that there isn't a leader in the group, because I think that is misleading anyway. I think clients come because they are attracted to the work of the partners. They know there is a group of people around them. But we collaborate a lot within my team, and we create things together, starting from a more strategic direction that we need to set up, and the thinking of what the design then needs to do. And slowly we develop into design, and we often start with several designers, and myself including, and then we trim down to one or two at the end of the project. I have two associates, which are the most senior designers in my team, and they help me run things and make sure that we deliver everything to the best level of quality. So because I can't physically be involved in everything, but I am involved in every project very deeply, in the conversations with the client and the origination of the ideas, and that phase of editing and figuring out what is right for the project. I think it's a form of leadership that is pleasurable to me, that I enjoy, and hopefully my team enjoys, because if the experience is painful, why would we do it? I think you choose what you want to do with your life, and it needs to bring you joy, and it needs to make sense. If it's just pain, why would you do it? So I feel that, for example, I see that there are different styles. Sometimes leadership is very competitive and is trying to set up people to compete against each other. I don't like that. Whether it's more efficient or not, I don't know. I do believe that the sum of the parts and the collaboration is what brings the best work, because I might originate something and then people change it, and then someone else takes that over and adds something else, and it keeps growing. It's organic, and in that way we achieve the best. And maybe one person in the team will be better at motion, the other one will be better at photography, the other one will be better at typography. So they all bringing their inputs, but it's all based on a common start, on a ground zero that we agreed, that came from the conversations with the client and the brief that we established in the first place.
What does it take to be part of your team? When you select people, you said how important every single person is for you in the team and how selective you are of people who join your team, apart from the talent and obviously the design work that I'm sure is a given that needs to be of the highest standards. What do people need to have to become part of your team?
I look for people with curiosity and wanting to find different ways of doing things. Of course, talented people, people that can make beautiful things, but I'm more and more looking for unusual ways of working because I see design around, if you want to look at Instagram or whatever, it's so similar what everyone is doing. There's the typefaces of the moment, there's the colors of the moment, there's the shapes of the moment, and then they get out of fashion in a couple of years. And that's not what I want to do. I want to create things which feel more original. I know it's impossible to be completely original, but the method that we use to create will generate the outcome, and you almost have to let it go a little bit of the control of it. So if you're processing, and we were back in the workshop, and if you make something using a crazy tool that you created, or sometimes we had a screwdriver and we put a brush at the end and it was painting things in a way that was making the perfect circle, but it was also spitting ink everywhere. There's things that you can't control, and you can do the same with coding. You set up the seeds, but they need to always try to create a different outcome which is relevant to what you're trying to achieve in the first place. And if it's disconnected to the client purpose or personality, then it's pointless. I think the idea is to find that path that I say is unique about the brief and the client and that strategy, and then express in a way that is really unique and very hard to repeat. So that's why I try, and people who have that mindset are really good to work in my team. Plus the ability to craft and the ability to have a good eye and see what, how compositions work and how to create beautiful things. But there is something about being open to find the original way of working and original methods that has become more and more important to me.
So you've been in branding for a very long time, and you've seen branding as an industry changing and design as an industry changing. What excites you about the future of this industry? Anything that you look forward to, where design is going or branding is going, that really excites you personally, and that's what makes you stay in this industry?
I think the obvious thing about AI becoming a center of discussion puts a lot more pressure on us, both learning to use technology well, but also not relying on technology to think for us. I think we need to be able to instigate and create things that have the emotional connection that perhaps AI isn't able to do. And for the moment, there is a lot that AI cannot do. And I think us being able to drive, not be driven by AI, but be able to use AI as a tool that opens new paths is very exciting. But not be limited to AI. I think not just think about, even the way that you see a studio like Pentagram, it has a huge library, it has a workshop, it has space to create. It doesn't just have desks and computers. I think there's a lot that happens which is outside of the screen. And I think being able to think both about how to best use everything that you can do on screen and everything that, and the exchange between the two is really fascinating, because you can learn from methods which are analog, and then you can learn from technology, and then, vice versa. So I think there's a lot in that space in between that is really fascinating.
Thank you so much, Marina. It has been such a pleasure talking to you. And I just now want to go back and start doing things with hands and I don't know, tools and paint. And you just inspired to start experimenting again. And you're so right. We sometimes forget that that's where creativity comes from. That's where new ideas come from, not repeating the same thing. So thank you so much for bringing all these ideas. And yeah, it has been an incredible pleasure. And thanks for inspiring.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.
And thanks everyone for tuning in this time. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. And definitely follow us on Instagram, follow Pentagram on everywhere, Instagrams, Twitters, and LinkedIn's of the world. And until next time.